Hello, everybody. I'm Louis Karpas. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And it follows on from last night's conversation where we spoke to the rugby directors of Hilton and Michael House, which, of course, is one of the big schools clashes in rugby in South Africa. And tonight we've progressed from schools to varsity action and the recently concluded Varsity Cup competition, which, of course, was won in a magnificent performance by the Ike Tigers against the Marties of Stellenbosch, which in itself is a fantastic derby between two of the top universities in South Africa and most certainly in Cape Town, and a derby that stretches back almost more than 100 and something years. Great performance by the Ikes, and we're very happy to be joined this evening by Captain Sipho Dionase. Sipho, welcome to the program. Firstly, thanks for your time, congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's really special. I think it's always cool to be reflecting on the final, because obviously afterwards, after the final whistle goes, life's got to move on. But in moments like this, when you have the opportunity to kind of reflect and speak back on those moments, it's quite epic. And so thank you.
Lovely. Nice to have you with us. So let's just reflect back on that evening. And I guess, as you mentioned, it's easier to reflect back after a little while because you've had a chance to let it all sink in. But you guys really played some fantastic rugby on the night.
Yeah. I think some of the rugby that we played on the night, yes, it was cool, but I think it was a build-up throughout the whole season. We often say that it wasn't a perfect season, but I think in each and every single game, we made sure that we're getting better. The biggest thing was that we picked correctly. So, yeah, that's why we had such a stellar of a performance, is that we just made sure each and every single game as the season went on that we just kept on getting better. And the results came.
And also, I mean, full credit to you and your team for the style of rugby that you guys played. I mean, there were some magnificent tries and open rugby and great entertainment, even though you had to play it away from home.
Funny enough, I think it was the UJ game. Like you kind of spoke to us about that we probably will end up playing 3 away games in a row, which means UJ semi-final and then the final. And we just told us one another that we're going to embrace it. And we said we're going to show up. And we often speak about it that, yes, the best place to play final is obviously your home ground, which would be the Green Mile. But I think it's every Ike player's dream to the second best place you can play on the Craven Stadium, which is pretty much in your backyard. So, yes, we had a few of our people, not the same amount as Stellenbosch. We had a few of our people out there to root for us, and we just made sure that we're just going to make them proud, as minimum as they were.
So, Sipho, when you come up in a competition like this, obviously for you it's now your last year, but let's just talk about Varsity Cup rugby. It's revolutionized university rugby, which, with respect, had gone a bit dead and quiet a decade or so ago.
Yeah, I think it's completely changed the notion of Varsity Cup, with so many people investing money. And yes, the big focus is on academics, because I think guys might not know the rule that for you to play Varsity Cup, you need 60 credits. So that means that you need to pass 50% of the courses that you're doing. And so that is a big foundation of it. And then there's a part where people like F&B, Suzuki, Steers are all investing so much money into it. And now it being broadcasted on TV, it just amplifies the whole thing. And guys on Instagram is also, like, we live in a digital world right now. With Instagram there, TikTok there, guys can make edits, and it enables everyone pretty much in South Africa to be able to have access to it and reach it. And it gives so many of the guys exposure. And I think that's just what makes it so much bigger. And yeah, it's been a blessing for guys, because now unions and people and scouts can see what you're really all about through one clip and see what you can do.
Sipho, last night, as I mentioned, we were chatting to the guys, the 2 directors of rugby from Hilton and Michael House, and one of the questions I posed to them was, how difficult is it for their kids, and I call them kids, I mean, they're not, and some of those guys are huge, but I mean, when they leave school, they are absolute heroes. Like Michael House Derby is massive, and everybody's cheering them on Monday, and some of them not so much, depending on the result of the game. And then they come to university, and all of a sudden, they're like a tadpole in a massive pool of rugby players that have come from absolutely everywhere and heroes at school, and then all of a sudden they're struggling to make 3rd, 4th, and even horse-race teams. How difficult is that transition? You as a player who's obviously had to go through it.
Yeah, it is really tough, because now you're getting guys from all over, guys from Durban High School, Paul Germ, Weinberg boys, Bishops, and all of the pretty much the best of the best in their respective positions. You competing up against them. Like for example, in our team this year, we had 5 guys who were captain of their first teams while they were at school, and so now with such a big pool of players to select from, it is tough. It is tough, and I think the thing that makes it even tougher is the consistency you need throughout the whole of preseason, the whole of the gym sessions, the whole of the training session. And that makes it so much harder because, yes, it is cool for you to show up maybe one training session and have a stellar training session. But to be able to continue that consistency throughout, it makes it even harder. And with so many guys backing themselves and coming from prestigious schools, you know everyone is good. You know everyone can play the game. And so I think Flecky could probably answer this better than me, but when it comes to selection, the coaches really scratch their heads because there's so many good players. And as a player, speaking on their behalf, I think it is really tough to make the cut because you're competing with so many brilliant guys.
So now you're in the team. Unfortunately for you, because of the way the competition works, it's your last year, but I guess you'll be leaving with some great memories. And obviously taking with you that honor of captaining the Ikeys to the trophy.
Yeah, I think for me, it's pretty much a dream come true. I remember when I was a youngster, my biggest dream was just to come in and just play one game for the Ike Tigers. Because of Weinberg being so close to UCT, we used to sometimes sneak out during the prep breaks, which are at 7 o'clock, to just make sure that we get to catch the second half of the games. And me and my few of my mates, my rugby mates, we'd say, sure, brother, like one day we need to make sure we find ourselves here just to play one game for these guys. And fast forward now 4 years, you leave in the place and you're leaving with a gold medal, which is special. Just to be able to captain the team just makes it so much better. And so to have achieved what we have as a team, it's a dream come true. I think not many people have the opportunity to play in the Varsity Cup. Not many people have the opportunity to play for UCT, and not many people even have the opportunity to be able to captain it. So as I'm going to leave this place, I'm going to take with me all of those moments, collect those moments and those memories that I've had, because I think ultimately though they are the ones that have shaped me to become the person who I am today.
And I guess a hell of a lot in your future life. I mean, you're 24, you've got a long, long, magnificent life ahead of you, is to learn ups and downs and to learn failure and success. And I guess this competition certainly has given you that in both heaps and bounds of success and failure.
Yeah, it's given us a lot of those. I just starts from when I first got there. My first year, it was 22. We lost in the semi-final. We got destroyed by Marty's. 23, we lost in the final against Puka. In 24, then we lost to the final against Shimlers. And finally in 25, we won the final. And so it's understanding that just because you're going to work hard and you're going to do everything in your ability, nothing is guaranteed. It's not certain that you're going to win the game. And so that just eases you to just make sure that you give your 150% every time you show up to training or the matches, but nothing is guaranteed. And so understanding that it's like a pendulum swing, that sometimes, yes, it will go your way and sometimes it won't. I mean, even in this season, we didn't necessarily win every single game, but we were able to go out and win the final. And so those lessons are very important for us.
And I guess in your wildest dreams when you were at Weinberg, did you ever believe or think to yourself that a great like Robbie Fleck would be the man that would be leading you to a trophy in the Varsity Cup final against the Marties? Certainly somebody from Bishops as well.
Yeah, I never thought about it or even fathomed it in my wildest dream. I mean, growing up, I wasn't really much of a rugby fan. I was big on football. So when I got to UCT, I didn't even know who Robbie Fleck was. And then I'll tell my parents, do you guys know Robbie Fleck? Because everyone used to say he's a Springbok, he was a Stormer. I don't know who Robbie Fleck was. And I think the more that I've worked with him, and then then we went to go watch some of his tributes on YouTube. And then you get to see this guy was really, he was about it. And to know that you're getting coached by such a person of great caliber who's done the game, who's done the 9 yards, it kind of inspires you to be able to give you 150%, but at the same time to know that whatever he's teaching you, whatever he's coaching you, you know that it's coming from the right place. So yeah, it's been quite cool.
So Robbie Fleck, the head coach of Mighty Ikeys, has had some real ups and downs in his career. Robbie, what was that night like for you? I know you're very humble and you gave all the credit to the players, but what a job you've done, and as well as the players themselves. Great night, great memories, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it was. It was obviously a nice way to end the campaign. I mean, it was an excellent night for all involved, and not just this campaign, but the previous 4 or 5 years, and a lot of effort has been put into this result now. But yeah, it was more about the whole campaign, to be honest. I mean, that was just the cherry on the top, and it's the boys celebrated hard for a week, post the game, and they deserved that. But it really has been about, what we started about a couple of months back. We're in pre-season, and the targets that we set ourselves and the goals and the purpose of the group, and the way we operate, the way we behave, the way we, the values, the culture within the club, that all sort of came through the campaign and culminated in the victory at the end. But yeah, what a wonderful journey we had.
It's obviously wonderful to win it, and I guess just a little bit more tinge of enjoyment when you beat the Marties.
Yeah, look, it is. I mean, they are traditional rivals, and and the track record speaks for itself. That we haven't been too successful over the last couple of decades. They obviously the mighty Marties, and they deserve that place in South African rugby. They are the team to beat, and there's always been great matches against them in the past, and I'm talking decades ago, and there's always a bit of history behind it, and some excellent coaches and players have come out of, the Marties Ikeys games. So, and we respected that, and we certainly want to enjoy that. And, and there obviously was joy in beating them, especially at the Donny Craven. But the joy comes in the way we play, to be honest. That's the real joy for us. It wasn't really about the results, and we never really looked at results throughout our year and campaign. It was all about style of play, and that was our drive and our purpose, and we kept on pushing that. And that's why you saw the smiles on on the players and the management. We really loved what we did and what we are, and it's about the enjoyment of the game. It's about loving the game of rugby and playing a brand that we can certainly be proud of and build a legacy around it. And that came through, really well in that final. So that's where the real joy comes in.
Absolutely. And I did mention to Sipo earlier on in the interview about the brand that you played and the style that you played on the night. I'm glad that you touched a little bit on the history of Marty's Ikeys, because I'm still old enough to remember seeing people climbing up rugby poles at Newland Stadium on a Saturday afternoon when Marty's and Ikeys played, and there was bands and there were 40,000 spectators there. And then rugby kind of died a little bit after the Easter competitions that used to happen in Durban, which I'm sure you'll remember. And then Varsity Cup came along, and it's been revived so brilliant, and not just the brand of rugby that you guys are playing, but just the enthusiasm from everybody, the TV coverage, the little changes in the laws and how it all works is something that you, as an ex-player who played in a different era to what's being played right now, you must really be enjoying it.
No, loving it. I was actually one of those students that were probably climbing the poles back in the day. I matriculated, and I was actually at Newlands when I think it was the last intervarsity that was ever played at Newlands in front of 40,000, like you say. And and that's what you grow up and you want to be part of. And I think what Varsity Cup has done is has brought that, that real, legacy around these intervarsity games and the pure sort of entertainment around it, and and the history behind it, and it has been missing for some time. And the Varsity Cup in itself is a hugely successful competition, not only bringing back traditional games like intervarsity, but it's huge opportunity for young players to come and get to and study what to further their careers off the field, but also to further their careers on the field. There's some special rugby players that have come out of the Varsity Cup. Some future coaches have come out of the Varsity Cup. John Dobson, just won. It's a competition that is really sort of a passion back into club rugby and university rugby, and it's on a very, very high level, on a high performance level. And and that whole sort of history, it's brought that whole sort of history and legacy back into rugby, which is so important, because in the professional era, you don't get to see, that much anymore. What's important in rugby is about building relationships with your opposition and obviously within your own team, and having friendships be, built forever, building a network and enjoying the game for what it is. So, that's why we were, so hard and on about a certain style that was linked to the Ike legacy and was about enjoyment and about loving the game of rugby and really bringing that back into the makeup. And you can come to university at UCT and obviously get your degree, but you can also have a life experience playing, high performance rugby and obviously having another opportunity maybe to turn professional one day as well.
You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these.
Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Nolita.
And I am Kinga.
Join us for a transformative experience, the Womb Goddesses Circle, with Unique Yet Connected.
If you are seeking healing from trauma or craving balance and connection, this event is for you. We'll guide you through meditations, energy work, and practices to gently release old wounds and restore harmony.
When your womb space is balanced, everything else falls into place. Experience greater well-being and deeper self-connection.
Join a safe, supportive circle of women on the same journey.
Don't miss out. Check the caption for our next date and click the link below to explore more.
Spaces are limited. Book your spot today on our website for a circle of healing, sisterhood, and transformation.
We can't wait to hold space for you. Let's reconnect with our womb wisdom together.
See you there.
Hello, everybody. I'm Louis Karpas. Join me on the next edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room as we look forward to a fantastic sporting weekend, which is spearheaded by the Nedbank Cup final in South Africa between two of the greatest football teams in South Africa. One of the most important derbies you'll ever see. Pirates against Chiefs. That and all the other footballing action, rugby action, cricket action, and tennis as well. All that in our preview show, From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Join us then. Sipo, you obviously can't play next year, age limit side. Where to from here for you now in terms of your rugby career?
Definitely, I think being at UCT for so long and getting some sort of success and some milestones, it opens up the door to other opportunities. And so my agent is currently trying to get a contract for me somewhere. And so I've realized that I've got some rugby to play, and I'm really keen. I think UCT, with everything that's happened there, just my love and my zeal for the game has been revived. So I definitely have got some rugby to play, and that's my plan after this, to go play some more rugby.
Robbie, I have a smile on my face, and I'm sure you do as well. I mean, can I imagine if I was talking to you at 23 and asking you about what your agent was going to do for you in the future of your rugby? I mean, how the game has changed. It's ridiculous.
It has, that's the nature of where the game is going at the moment. That the beauty about the Varsity Cup is that it helps these guys have these opportunities, right? So, a lot of kids these days are either, that tend to give up the game and they go to university and they want to further their careers in terms of business or whatever their chosen field is, or they actually become immediate full-time professionals, so they go straight from school into some sort of academy system, into the provincial setup, and they've chosen rugby as a potential career, but not all of them make it. It's incredibly tough. But the beauty about, the guys who come to university and play in the Varsity Cup, that they actually ultimately can have a choice of both, and can do both. So Steeple's in a fortunate position now that, he's now done his studies. He's got a degree behind him and he's done a postgrad, and he's well equipped from an academic point of view to go out and work. But what he's also got now is the opportunity to go professional. He's got an agent, and he's certainly good enough to go out there and play for a union somewhere in the world or a club somewhere in the world. And he will learn so much just, being a part of a professional rugby environment, part of a team, building a network, learning how to build relationships and form relationships that will help him, ultimately post-career. So that's the beauty about this competition, is that these kids are able to, build a career, not only just a rugby career, but also, a business opportunity later on because they've completed their studies.
When you look at the structure that the Varsity Cup puts together, you now as a coach have got to find yourself a new captain for the new year, unlike, let's say, Rassie, for example, who's got Sia as his captain as long as he wants him. How difficult is it to transition into another year for you as the coach?
Yeah, that is the challenge, right? And that's the challenge every Varsity Cup, coach has and university has, in the sense that you probably can bank on average losing 8 players a season. And obviously most of them would be out of your leadership group, experienced players like Sipho, who was a phenomenal captain for us this year. Sadly now, he can't stay because of the age. It's now you have to be under 23, and he's done his post-grad and his time is up. So, the trick is, we got to keep filling up, with young players. So we obviously go and look and recruit at schoolboy level and looking at kids already, in grade 11 and grade 12, and who's a potential Ike man, that will suit, the club, first and foremost from a culture point of view, and who can play the brand of rugby that we want. And obviously who would like to come to UCT. And then obviously we look at potential third-year students who, haven't, done the studying yet and are still eligible to come and study at UCT and maybe falling off a provincial contract, somewhere else in the country. And he's looking for an opportunity, to go and study and to play still at a high level in terms of varsity cup and have a real cultural and rugby experience with us. And then obviously there's the postgrads. So the guys who are finishing, at another university and they see an opportunity with a postgrad course that only UCT offers, or they want to come and experience that rugby experience, like I said, at UCT, and they want to play a brand of rugby and potentially get an opportunity to turn professional because of, what we offer from a high performance point of view at the club. So, it's a lot of juggling balls and that's what every, team faces, and year on year you can bank on 8 leaving and you need to find, 8 new players and the main thing is that that the guys enjoy themselves and that you retain them. We've got to be able to retain the players that we've got. We've got to ensure that they pass. In the past we probably had 1 or 2 guys who have failed and because the rugby experience became a little bit too much and they became under-20 players and suddenly their calendar is full and they forget to go to studies, which is not what we want. So
Sure.
It's a tricky juggling act, but at the end of the day, it's hugely rewarding, working with these young players and guys from different backgrounds and just seeing the smile and the joy in their faces when things, really do click and we do what we're supposed to do for them.
And added to all of that, you as coach have created this brand of rugby, which I'm sure many other coaches are going to want to emulate next year. So you're going to have to be one step ahead, like have that green light and that orange light above the stadium, which now everybody else knows about. You've got to find something else for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, rugby is always evolving, right? I mean, the fundamentals of the game haven't changed over 100 years, but it certainly does evolve and it sometimes does a full 360, and comes back to certain things that were working a couple of years ago work now, probably with just a little bit of a different view on it. But look, our view won't change in terms of the way we play. UCT has got a legacy around entertaining, running rugby, and there's joy in that. And we will push the boundaries forever in terms of that. We will always be a varsity that wants to run the ball, a rugby team that wants to entertain. Certainly not as you would have seen in the Investec Champions Cup now, that the attacking sides are the ones that are getting rewarded. Northampton Saints were unbelievable on the weekend against Leinster, and they showed a masterclass in attacking rugby, and so did Bordeaux against Toulouse, and that's what we sort of base on what UCT is and always has been, and the future of UCT will always be a brand and a style that the players and the management and the fans and the stakeholders can be exceptionally proud of, and we will be uniquely different. And I feel that always gives us, we're always one step ahead in that regard. And certainly what we built on this year, it attracts players, it attracts, more stakeholders to the club and to the university. We, now while we're busy recruiting, all we get is phone calls about, I want to be part of that, I want to be part of that brand. So it's usually important for us that we just keep pushing the boundaries in what we do and how we play. And in fact, the theme already for 2026 is that we want to be braver. So we want to be braver in everything we do, how we meet, how we train, how we play, how we talk to each other, our values, and we're just going to keep pushing that boundary every year.
Sipho, finally, final question to you before we go back to Robbie for a final question with him. Just a little brief summary of what you're going to take out of your years playing for the Ike Tigers, bearing in mind, obviously, that Varsity Cup rugby is now over for you. What are the highlights briefly for you?
I think the first one would probably be just connect with the guys around you. I think when we do that, I think even as a team, when we begin to connect, even if it's off the field, that inevitably that'll transcend onto the field. And so that just builds cohesion and it enables guys to understand one another better. And ultimately that leads to better performance. This one probably comes from this year, is that it's okay to not always agree with some of the guys around you. I think I've had to learn that even within the leadership team this year, that we've had some times when we go at each other and we don't always see eye to eye. But in that, I always ask myself, it's not about who's right, but more importantly about what's right. And I think the last one is just because you work hard and you give your everything in all you do, nothing is ever going to be guaranteed. And so, for example, this year, in each and every single training session we had, we worked hard, but there were games that we lost. And so we prepped well, we did everything that we could, but we lost some games. And in those games, Flicky often told us that he's not concerned about the result. It's more about how he played. And in both games, we lost against CUT and against Marties. He wasn't really concerned about the result, but how he performed. And he wasn't disappointed in any way with how he played. But yet, the two games that he was quite disappointed about were Tuks and Shimlers. And I was quite shocked with why would he be disappointed? We've just beat two big teams. I mean, Shimlers, they just won the Varsity Cup last year. Tuks, they're just a generational team, and we know what they're all about. So I think in that, I've learned that just because you get the results you want doesn't mean you must settle. And Flecky's pushed us, and my takeaway is just to keep pushing the boundaries, keep shifting the goalposts and setting those standards. This year, our biggest thing was that we wanted to leave a legacy. And a legacy, yes, it's a trail that we want to leave behind. But in us leaving that trail, there's got to be some milestones. And yes, we did celebrate the milestones each and every single game that we performed well. We celebrate winning the Varsity Cup. That's cool. And I think that's just a milestone on the legacy that the guys that are involved now want to leave behind. And I think what we saw this year is just it's a milestone of what we want to leave behind. So, yeah, those are probably my key takeaways from the special time here at the Ikeys.
Robbie, I guess them lifting the trophy is one thing, but hearing what your captain's just said right now must make you burst with pride, because you've turned him into a man. You've taken rugby and created something special and something wonderful. And I know you're a very humble bloke, but I mean, you've been part of that. It must make you feel really, really proud.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's to hear Sipho speak like that, you're right. It's hugely humbling and very, very proud of Sipho. The key to Sipho's leadership was that he had to be himself, uniquely himself. And, what happens with leaders, especially young leaders, is that, they forget to be natural and authentic, and they try and read up about leadership and, trying to do a quick sort of learning on how to lead a group and a business or a team or whatever that case may be, and which is, the wrong thing to do. Leadership is all about being yourself, because that's where people draw energy from. If you're a natural leader, which Sipho is, every leader's got certain weaknesses and strengths, and it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and that's the environment we created, not only for all players and the way we played, but also for a leader like myself and for Sipho. It was completely okay to make mistakes. What was most important is that you had to be uniquely true to yourself and authentic and lead the way that is only natural and comfortable to you, and people will naturally draw themselves to you. That's what Sipho did. That's what the rest of the leadership group did. That's what the management did. It was so important that, you had to be you, and we created that environment. And I think that's what allowed people to play with freedom, to play without pressure, to play this unique brand of rugby. If you want to play a style that the Ike Tigers play, it can't be a coach-corrected environment. It can't be an environment where, mistakes are showing up all the time. And it's got to be the complete opposite, that we encourage mistakes, we embrace it, we grow from it, we get better and better as we go along. And that was the environment. And so much so that, if we think about how Sipho grew as a leader throughout the campaign, he was extremely raw as a leader. In the beginning, he's never really been the captain of the Varsity Cup team, certainly. And, he landed up being one of our, captains we've ever had, and he made decisions for the group on and off the field towards the end of the campaign, which were massive decisions without any guidance or help from myself or the rest of the management. So that's the environment that we encourage and that we got right at the end. And now we have to start that process again. And, we'll find a new leadership within the group. We'll find a new captain, and we'll go through the same thing, and hopefully we'll get the same result.
I know you're an Ike through and through, and I asked this question tongue-in-cheek. I saw John Dobson sitting in the stand. He led the Ikes. Dobbo's position at the Stormers in jeopardy, perhaps?
No, Dobbo's safe. Don't you worry about that. He's well and safe there at the Stormers, and he's doing a great job. But and he's been hugely supportive of us as always. So it's just such a lacquer environment, to be honest. And I'm extremely happy and privileged to be part of UCT Rugby.
It certainly sounds like it. Sipho and Robbie, thank you so very, very much for joining us and being so open and honest. Congratulations again. And Robbie, I guess you know better than anybody when you're on the top. They're all trying to knock you down. So good luck for next season, and thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have doing the interview with the captain and the coach of the mighty Ike Tigers. That's tonight's show. Once again, join us tomorrow evening when we look forward to another fantastic sporting weekend. As always, be nice to each other. Until tomorrow. Bye for now.